The job paid $15,000 a month to house sit an empty penthouse, with only one rule that mattered: I was never, ever to try and see the owner. The ad was buried on a niche job board, a single cryptic paragraph promising an absurd amount of money for what it called a residency manager. It sounded like a scam, or worse. But my eviction notice was a flimsy, pink slip of paper that felt heavier than a tombstone. Desperation makes you knock on doors you really shouldn't. After a brief, anonymous text exchange, I was given an access code. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and the silence that hit me was absolute. It was a palace of glass and steel, overlooking the city's glittering sprawl. The furniture was minimalist, expensive, and looked like it had never been touched by a human being. It felt less like a home and more like a showroom for a life no one was living. My employer, who I only knew as Mr. Silas, communicated exclusively through a secure messaging app on a tablet that was left for me on the kitchen island. The first message was waiting. Welcome, Kaylin. Your duties are simple. Follow the list I send each evening. Do not deviate. Your payment will be deposited weekly. Do not attempt to contact me outside this app. The first list seemed trivial, almost laughably easy for the money involved. 7:00 p.m. Ensure all window shades are drawn. 9:00 p.m. Activate the air purifier in the master bedroom. 11:00 p.m. Turn on the lamp in the west corner of the living room. I did it all, feeling like the world's most overpaid ghost. I explored the vast apartment. No photos. No books. No clutter. The only personal touch was a single, locked door at the end of the main hallway, made of heavy, dark wood that seemed ancient compared to the rest of the apartment. The app had a specific instruction about it: the teak door is not part of your responsibilities. Do not approach it. I spent the first week in a state of surreal boredom, watching movies on the gigantic television and eating gourmet food I had delivered. The money arrived in my account like clockwork. I started to relax. Maybe Mr. Silas was just an eccentric billionaire with a privacy fetish. On the 8th night, the list changed. 10:00 p.m. Go to the kitchen. Boil a kettle of water. Pour the boiling water down the sink drain in the master bathroom. It was strange, but harmless. I did it. The steam hissed and the pipes gurgled. As I was leaving the bathroom, I heard it for the first time. A faint scratching sound. It seemed to come from inside the walls, from the ventilation shaft. I froze, listening. It was rhythmic, like nails dragging on metal. Then it stopped. I told myself it was the building settling, or an animal in the ducts. In a penthouse this high up, that seemed unlikely. The next night, the list got weirder. 11:30 p.m. Stand in the exact center of the living room. Face the northern window. Remain completely still for 5 minutes. Do not look away from the window. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stood there, staring at my own faint reflection against the city lights. 5 minutes has never felt so long. Every creak of the building, every distant siren, felt like a prelude to something terrible. The scratching started again, louder this time, seemingly moving in the vent right above my head. It sounded like it was pacing. I squeezed my eyes shut, focusing on the instruction. Do not look away. When the 5 minutes were up, I practically ran to the bedroom, locking myself in. The tasks became a nightly ritual of escalating dread. 1:15 a.m. Turn off all lights except the kitchen's under-cabinet lighting. Open the refrigerator and leave the door ajar. 2:47 a.m. Play the provided audio file at maximum volume on the living room sound system. The file was just static. A wall of harsh, white noise that filled the sterile apartment for a solid 10 minutes. But underneath the static, I could hear the scratching from the vents become frantic, frenzied. It sounded angry. It sounded hungry. I was a prisoner in a gilded cage, my compliance bought and paid for. I started losing sleep, my days a blur of anxiety, waiting for the evening's list. I tried to research Mr. Silas, but it was a digital dead end. The name yielded nothing. The corporation that owned the building was a shell company that led to another shell company. He was a ghost. One night, I broke a rule. A small one. The instruction was to place a bowl of sugar on the floor by the locked teak door. My hands were trembling so badly I spilled a small mound of it on the pristine floor. I cleaned it up quickly, but a few granules were left behind. The next morning, the bowl was empty, as expected. But next to the spot where I'd spilled the sugar, there was a long, deep scratch in the hardwood floor. It was fresh, and it looked like it had been made from the asterisk inside asterisk of the locked room. My blood ran cold. The room wasn't for storage. It was for containment. The scratching was a constant companion now. Sometimes I'd hear faint whispering through the vents, a sibilant, dry sound that didn't form words. My sanity began to fray. I felt watched, even when I was alone. My reflection in the dark windows sometimes seemed to move a split second after I did. The penthouse no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. The lists were no longer about maintaining the apartment. I understood that now. They were a set of procedures. A system of appeasement. The boiling water, the static, the light, the sugar, they were all for whatever was living in the walls and behind the teak door. And I was its keeper. The breaking point came at the end of the third week. The evening's list loaded on the tablet, and my breath hitched. There was only one instruction. Tonight, the routine changes. At 3:33 a.m., the teak door will unlock. A guest will emerge. Guide them to the spare bedroom. Do not speak to them. Do not turn on the lights. And whatever you do, do not look at their face. This was it. This was the test. Or the end. I spent the hours leading up to 3:33 a.m. huddled in a corner, shaking. I wanted to run, to bolt out the elevator and never look back. But the thought of what might happen if I wasn't there to perform my duty was somehow more terrifying. What would it do if its routine was broken? Would it follow me? At 3:32 a.m., I positioned myself in the darkened hallway, as instructed. The only light was the cold, distant glow of the city through the massive windows. The digital clock on the oven glowed 3:33 a.m. And then, with a heavy, sickening click, the lock on the teak door disengaged. The door swung open silently, revealing a pit of absolute darkness. There was no sound for a full minute. Then, a slow, wet, dragging sound. Something was coming out. A shape began to resolve itself from the blackness. It was tall, far taller than a man, and stooped, its limbs moving at odd, disjointed angles. It moved with a horrible, boneless fluidity. I couldn't see a face, only a silhouette that felt fundamentally wrong. The air grew cold, carrying a scent of dust and spoiled meat. My instructions were to guide it. My body wouldn't move. I was paralyzed with a fear so pure and total it was like being encased in ice. The thing paused in the hallway, its form shifting. I could feel it looking at me. I remembered the last instruction. Asterisk, do not look at its face. Asterisk. I forced my gaze down to the floor, my heart threatening to explode. I took a single, shuffling step toward the spare bedroom. The dragging sound started again, following me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to scream, to look up. I kept my eyes glued to the floor, my own feet moving one in front of the other. It felt like I was leading a predator through my own home. The spare bedroom door was open. I stepped aside, pressing myself flat against the wall, making myself small. The tall, stooped shadow slid past me, its presence a wave of nauseating cold. For a split second, a part of it brushed my arm. It was slick and hard like old leather. I choked back a sob as it disappeared into the bedroom. I waited, listening. After a moment, I heard the sound of the vent cover inside the room being pried loose. Then, the familiar scratching, moving away, up into the guts of the building. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, watching the sun rise, feeling like I had aged 100 years. Around 9 a.m., the tablet pinged. It was a new message from Mr. Silas. Excellent work. Your final payment has been transferred, along with a bonus. The position is now concluded. Your replacement will arrive this evening. Please be gone by 6 p.m. And below it, a screenshot of a new job posting on the same niche website I had used. The same title, Residency Manager. The same promise of absurd pay. It all clicked into place with a soul-crushing certainty. I wasn't a keeper. I wasn't a guard. I was the bait. I was the calming presence, the nightly ritual that kept the thing docile. I was the thing it observed from the vents, the life it fed on, psychically, until it needed to move. I was the thing that made the cage comfortable. And my month was up. The bonus wasn't for a job well done. It was hush money. I packed my single bag, my hands still shaking. As I waited for the elevator, I glanced back at the penthouse. The palace of glass and steel. It looked exactly as it had when I arrived. Pristine. Silent. Empty. But I knew what lived in its heart, behind the walls and the expensive facade. I stepped into the elevator, and as the doors slid shut, I looked at the tablet one last time. Someone had already replied to the new ad. The message read, "I'm very interested. When can I start?"